Welcome back to the Seed of Life Reiki podcast. I'm your host, Linda Giangregorio. I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest. She is another one of my students and comes from Corvallis, Oregon. Her name is Megan Mercer, and she is a transformational life coach and founder of Destination Reverie and the Reverie Method. She is hell-bent on helping others create a life with greater ease, flow, and enjoyment. Clients work with Megan when they are ready to up-level their health and wellness so they can begin living the life they truly desire. Today, we are going to discuss what it means to be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. So without further ado, welcome, Megan.
Hi, Linda. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I am so excited.
Me too. I always love our conversations.
I know. So give everyone a little background on you. Tell them who you are.
Who am I? I think I'm always trying to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
So I have a history with PTSD that came from an accident at 21. And after that accident and saying goodbyes to some friends and coworkers, I've been on this pursuit of living my life fully. And it's taken me into a lot of different corners and avenues and really finding out what it means to pursue my dreams. And I aligned with some really amazing people along the way. And all of a sudden I realized I want to help people who found themselves at a place like I did, where I thought maybe I wasn't going to be able to even get off the couch or my bed or live life at all, really. And in that pursuit, I've met people like you and other amazing people that have introduced me to tools, tips, tricks that have continued me on this journey, this path. And it has taken, like you said, we're going to talk about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. It has taken me on this path of continuously finding comfort in that next boundary that I have to break through to really live my purpose, and how I need to regulate myself in pushing through that next boundary.
That's beautiful. I can say I'm, and you know this, already in that same exact space. Like even today, last night as well, I kind of had to find that safe space in that moment of feeling uncomfortable.
It seems to be a continuous theme, right? Part of life.
Yeah, I know. So I would love it if you would share with the audience how you specifically practice feeling an emotion without becoming that emotion.
I think the most important thing that we can do, and we can even use your experience from last night if you want as an example,
Sure.
but the most important thing to do is become the observer, right? So all of a sudden you find yourself in this moment and allowing yourself to not avoid or numb out, but acknowledge it, right? Like, I'm just uncomfortable right now, or, this sensation's coming up. I'm feeling really scared. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I'm feeling really angry. I'm feeling really resentful, whatever it is, and allow yourself to be there, but detach from it just enough to be like, I'm having this experience, but this experience isn't me. And that will really allow us to take the power back and also extract any meaning. I know that we were talking a little bit before we hopped on about it being the full moon, right? Yesterday, I had some really unexpected things come up for me that were really a part of my foundation of feeling secure and stable. And I went into a full trauma release that I wasn't expecting. I was in a clay ceremony closing out a ceremony for this container I've been in since May, and we were doing this thing, and all of a sudden I felt called to lay on my back, and my legs just started shaking, and that's a full trauma release from being in that freeze state. And I realized that there was a lack of safety from certain people in my life and security that I depended on. And coming out of this holiday weekend, right, where we're around family and all of this stuff from our past, it was like, oh, no wonder why it's present for me. And I could just allow myself to observe how interesting it was that my legs were shaking, trembling, like would not stop because I was in this safe space to process this. But because I wasn't attached to the story, the
Yeah.
meaning, right? I was the observer. I was able to extract when I didn't feel safe and secure and supported, and allow myself to take a moment to remind myself that I am safe and I am supported by myself, by the universe, by the amazing people like you and so many other people that just happen to come into your life when you're in these places where you allow yourself to detach from the story and allow yourself to observe it, process it, and take away any information that you need.
Yeah, definitely. So, as I was mentioning, it was kind of like you said, rough yesterday. And then this morning, getting ready for this, I could just feel that my body needed to release. So I was giving myself Reiki and then all of a sudden just started crying. And I have come to learn that crying is great, right? Crying's that amazing release. And so many people are taught don't cry. It's crazy. So now I just, like you said, allow it to exist. My favorite thing that I say to anybody who's having a hard moment is it's okay to feel exactly how I feel.
I love that. That's so powerful.
Yeah. And I've had several, it's funny because I've had several of my students tell me that they literally hear me in the back of their head when they're through those moments because I think a lot of us, I don't know about you, but we were taught growing up, don't show your emotions. You know, you're in trouble. I'm going to give you something to cry about, all of those things. And then none of us ever were taught how to regulate, right? Like how to feel
Right.
safe in those moments. And I think it feeds beautifully into why a lot of us are people pleasers.
Absolutely. And people pleasing is a nervous system response. That's actually the fawn, right? And it's just,
Yeah.
let me focus on you, let me make everything okay. And then I feel okay. And it's not, so what does the people pleaser need? It needs to acknowledge what's there, right? It needs to maybe stand up for itself a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
But I always tell people this in my breathwork classes that, because it's one of the things that you have to break through to have an experience in breathwork as well, because emotions come up, they become dislodged, and you might experience it. And you might get in your head and think, what is this? What is the cause? Because the brain wants an answer. So often we're like, why am I crying? What is this? What does it mean?
Yep.
Right? What meaning of this? What does it mean about myself if I'm crying? What does it mean about the person that made me cry? And sometimes it's just emotion is energy in motion. So really, when you start to understand that it's just energy, like me watching my legs tremble, right? And holy cow, this is insane. And then it pushed me into sobbing, just sobbing, like my whole body up and down sobbing. And it was those years as a child of not feeling, supported from my dad in my life the way I needed, just coming up. And then it's repeated, and I felt the same way in other relationships. So there was this inner child, deep crying. But I always say to people in my breathwork class, don't blame your parents or the culture necessarily for us not feeling safe to cry, right? Because we want to find a reason why we feel like we're not safe to cry. But I honestly think it goes back really far. Like if you think about our ancestors, right, whose DNA is a part of us, that is, so our nervous system, our fight, flight, freeze, fawn is based off of thousands and thousands and thousands of years of DNA encoding in our genes through epigenetics, helps us survive. So if you think about your ancestors living in a cave, right, where there's predators around, are they going to want some predator to hear you crying in a cave? No, it would make you and the whole unit vulnerable, possibly, right? So I think we've been shushed for eons, and now we're at this really exciting time where we are safe enough to say, hey, We have these walls around us. We can yell, we can scream, because that's also important, right? Like, again, in my breathwork classes, I have people yell into a pillow because, and as women, we're not only taught not to cry, and men too, but we're also not supposed to yell. We're supposed to be good women and nice and kind and all these things, which are wonderful as well. But the truth is that we encompass it all. We have a wide variety of emotions, and they're all good. They all have important information for us, right?
Definitely. I think it's fascinating how, oh, and I've heard this for years now, and I think a lot of people have that whole thing that there's not a tiger outside anymore trying to eat you, but yet our bodies don't know the difference.
Totally. Yeah, no, it's encoded. It really came through to me. We have these sparrows, these little birds that like to nest in our door stoops, and we had one of those plastic owls out, so they didn't come to our door. But I saw one on my neighbor's light, and it's just, they don't know that this plastic owl could kill them, but it's in their DNA. It's their ancestors coding that told them that this was a predator, and so they should stay away from them. So they didn't choose our house. They chose the neighbors to keep their babies safe over there.
I always love too the example that animals give us, because we have that monkey mind and they don't. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, we want to blame somebody or something, right? And sometimes it is that easy. That's how we can become the observer. Some of us avoid our feelings because we don't want to blame somebody. We don't want to feel like somebody did us wrong, or we don't want to look at this critically, so we avoid our feelings for that. So when you can truly just be like, I'm coded that way. How can I alt control delete the programming in my mind that is not serving me and encode it with the information that is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know. And so many of us as well feel safer sitting in the shit, so to speak.
Totally. Yeah.
It's so crazy. Like, I specifically had to teach myself that you can have good growth experiences without painful experiences underneath them. Such an interesting dichotomy, interesting lesson to learn, because you get comfortable where you're at. And the longer that you feed yourself the stories, the longer that you allow your body to respond a certain way, for your thoughts to repeat themselves over and over and over, it kind of becomes hardwired. That's like your safe space. So I would love to hear from you, like a tip for the audience on how to get out of that space, to feel safe, to just start the tiniest step to feel better.
I love that. It's so juicy that we don't have to grow through pain. Again, it's our neural pathways, right? We'll choose, like you said, that uncomfortable hell over this more rewarding thing. And for what's really been exciting for me is following our desires. That's another route that a lot of people are quite uncomfortable with, but really, like, what would make me feel good, right? Like, just opening that curiosity to, what is it that I desire? That can be huge. And it can be just in the little moment of, like, what do I really want to drink? What do I really want to wear? And it doesn't have to be off of what I should wear, what I should do, what I should drink. Like, just, what do I want? And it can be in the smallest things, starting to turn that microphone up so that we can reprogram our life to be one that we actually desire, and not one that we're just living out of routine, right? Because these are the neural pathways that you were talking about that are tires. If we imagine our life like a road, we just get stuck in these ruts. And sometimes it takes that willingness, again, to, like, be comfortable being uncomfortable, to move the tires out of the rut and say, I want a new path. I want to forge my own path here. So what is it? Where do I want to drive? Where am I going to forge this path? What is it that I truly desire?
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's been to learn that the worst case scenario that I think is going to come from taking that leap onto the other side that I know is okay, that worst case scenario is not necessarily going to happen. Have you ever experienced that where so I don't know about you, but I have had to learn and work so hard on not being what I like to call a catastrophizer. Because I think that those worst case scenario thoughts stop you from even wanting to be inquisitive.
100%. And again, it all goes back to safety. It all goes back to the nervous system, right?
Yeah.
So catastrophizing, sure, but really it's your brain's way of wanting to make sure that you're safe, that your family's safe. So you think of the worst case scenarios because we are programmed for survival. And that's how our species has evolved to this point to bring us all here today, is they're able to really predict what the threats were and avoid these. So we are conditioned to look for what could hurt us, what we should be scared of. So now, again, it's the same thing with the emotions. We get to remind ourselves that we have a lot more safety than we used to, and that it is safe for us to create a life that we desire. We don't have to create a life that we are just avoiding what we're afraid of.
Yeah.
So really, I think there's so much power in really reminding ourselves that we're safe at all times. And one thing I do constantly is just put my hand on my heart, on my chest, because it allows our heart to come online. It allows us to release oxytocin and start feeling safe in the moment. And it's just a small little thing to remind ourselves that we don't have to catastrophize. We don't have to think of the worst case scenario to survive.
I know. I love that you said that because I do it too all the time. Even when I'm teaching Reiki and, there's set hand positions that they recommend that you use, I always show one hand on the heart, one hand on the forehead. It's such my go-to every day if I am feeling overwhelmed. And what I started to think about as you were talking was that PTSD component, because I definitely have it from multiple scenarios in my life, and it adds another layer to that feeling safe. So in those triggered moments, what do you recommend for people?
I love that you bring this back. It does add that other layer. And for me, it's important for me to say in who I am at the beginning, right? I'm like, Meg, why are you leading with this? You're not somebody who that PTSD doesn't define you, but it does. There's an undercurrent that your nervous system will tend to overreact in situations that it doesn't need to. And it's just kind of that constant netting in your life. So you have to be really aware to connect. I love so much, and I can see you, and I know I can see you putting your hand on your heart. So when I first of all, I don't like the word triggered personally, because it feels a little bit more jolting than my nervous system likes. Like I think of a trigger, I think of guns, right? So for me, I like to simply reword it. When I hear the word trigger, instantly I go to activation. What is this activating within me? Feel like it helps me take the power back just a little bit. So what is this activating? Okay, so this is activating this response that I want to fly out of here. Why do I feel like I need to go into flight, right? And then when you start to decode it, oh, well, or for instance, I used to hate being like in the spotlight, public speaking, right? Why am I so scared of this? Why am I sweating? Why do I feel like I can't even say a word? And when you go back to the programming you did, for me, it was a child not wanting to take attention from my siblings, right? That doesn't matter anymore. Alt, Control, Delete. And that's how you really start stepping into your purpose, your power. And in the little moments when you're like, as you shared earlier this morning or last night, things were just kind of brewing in the background.
Yep.
Why am I starting to feel this stress? The first thing that I will always do, take a breath. Take a breath, take a deep breath into your belly. The breath is your first responder to your nervous system. So you see something that activates something within you. You see, you hear, you smell.
Yeah.
One of your senses is activated. Instantly, there's a corresponding breath that goes along with it. You think if you get scared and it's like, right? And then that's sending off all these switches. Like imagine yourself like a circuit breaker. It's just flipping switches so that you can best survive whatever the situation is. And each one of our nervous system responses has its own breath and reactions that go into how we can best survive. Often we don't need it, right? Like your boss walks in the room. For a lot of people, there's anxiety about job security or demands or what they need. Instantly, they might say something and and then you respond, and it's kind of like this heightened, stressful response that you don't want when it could have just been like easy breezy. So instantly, when you have those moments of tension, if you just do a belly breath, you're going to respond from a more regulated place. And then sometimes if you still are feeling unsafe, that's when I take my hand to my chest. And sometimes I shake. Sometimes when you start to understand your nervous system responses that are being activated, you start having these little tips and tools that you can use and utilize to just move that energy. And again, since we're using animals so much as a reference today, you think about a dog, they interact with another dog that activates something within them. As soon as they walk away, they shake that off.
Oh, yeah.
They're not holding on to it. It's our species that just pushes it down and tries to live this quote unquote normal existence. At least we want to appear normal. But that's why so many people are in need of Reiki, breath work, meditation, all of this stuff right now and coming to it because our nervous systems are just overwhelmed.
Yeah. That's an understatement, I think, at this point. What was coming to mind when you were talking was this book that I found probably 8 years ago, and it's called What's in the Way is the Way. Game changer for me.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, the analogies in the book were just mind-blowing to me. And I think that I had kind of heard the message before, but you know how sometimes you hear a message, but you're not really ready. So then it comes again when life thinks you are a little bit more ready to hear it.
Absolutely.
And it was basically just do the visualization of all of the thoughts, all of the stories, the ideas about yourself are literally like a cloud over you. So beneath that is your true self. The cloud is covering your true self. And so once you give those stories, that cloud, the attention that it's asking for, just like the weather, they dissipate and then the sun shines through again. And the sun never actually went anywhere, but you just couldn't see it.
So beautiful.
Yeah, it was amazing for me. I literally was like, this is the very first book that has actually taught me how to process these things, these stories about myself, these parts of myself, the inner child, the teenager, the adult that got hurt. All of those versions of me are sitting there asking to just be seen. I think that a lot of times we get caught up in, I have to do something with this. Well,
Correct.
You really don't, I believe. I think it really is just giving it the attention and then it softens. This is why I love to tell all of you girls that we complicate the crap out of life and we really don't need to. It is seriously just as simple as, like we've talked about, putting your hand on your heart in those moments of overwhelm and calming yourself down. And then this kind of ties back to the whole neural pathway thing, I believe, that the more that you do that, the more you create new neural pathways.
You do. It becomes your set point, your homeostasis. And that's it. Our brain doesn't know the difference between good and bad. It knows efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
It knows you trained it to do this before, so it's going to go back there again. So that's where that getting comfortable with being uncomfortable really pays off. Because of course we want to stay in the rut. It's the road we've been conditioned to go down. Mm-hmm. However, The good, juicy stuff lays just on the other side. We just have to convince ourselves. We have to get the courage
Yeah.
to sit with the emotion. And that's really like the cloud. That's being the observer, the witnesser, the one who's willing to see without making up a story. The power of your mindset, because our body, our physio, our subconscious mind, which dictates 90 to 95% of how we react to the world. So we're not even conscious of it, right? We're just experiencing the cloud and making up a story, a mindset about it. And our body is reacting to all of these things on a subconscious level.
Yeah.
So you have to consciously make the decision to embrace getting uncomfortable and move those tires out of the rut and form this new pathway leading to the life that you truly want to live.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I say start small, because I think people get overwhelmed. I know I have in the past, where it's like, I recognize that I'm here and I want to be over there. But that's like such a huge leap and such an overwhelming process. I don't know if you've heard of like the emotional scale. Who is it? Abraham Hicks talks about it a lot. It's wherever you're at right now, just get to the next best feeling. It doesn't have to be this huge high thing that everybody loves to talk about. It's just get to the next thing that's going to make you feel just the tiniest bit better. And then the more you do that, the more you trust yourself. My husband and I were talking about this the other day, how if you've kind of unconsciously taught yourself that you can't trust yourself to keep yourself safe or to make decisions that honor where you want to go, who you want to be, just those little reframing moments tell you, hey, it's okay. And then I love what you were saying, because is it Dispenza? I think it's Dispenza talks about it a lot, where your physical body doesn't know the difference between experiences, right? It only knows the emotions that you're having. So I've been, and I think I told you this a couple months ago, big on his processes, and really have been for years. But, they come around again, like I said, when you're more ready. And I love his process of bird's eye viewing yourself, and then having a picture in your mind of what you want to be doing, and then feeling the emotion that comes along with that. And then that retells your body, oh, hey, this is where we want to be. And then we will actually start being there.
1000%. Safety is everything. And like, if you want to hit a target, your target, right, you have to have this goal. You have to see it, but you can't focus on like the top of the staircase. You just focus on the next stair. And really, how you're going to get to that next stair, you have to create that sense of safety. The first way to create a sense of safety is a breath. Your breath is the one that's telling your body subconsciously whether you're safe or not.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in the parasympathetic state or are you in the sympathetic state?
Yeah.
Your breath will change that instantaneously and allow you to take that next step into what it is that you need. And for me, like, it sounds like you're talking about like journey versus destination, right? So like, we have to know the destination we want to go, but we get to enjoy the journey. Like, if you're hiking up a mountain, you know me, I love to hike constantly. It's like, okay, so I want to get there. I want to get to the spot. I love to get to the viewpoint and to this bench that my dog and I love to sit at the very top. So I know I want to get there. But I'm still going to stop and I'm going to enjoy what's blossoming this season, or take picture of, the rose hip, the frost on the grass, the leaf that looks just something, because I want to enjoy the journey.
Yeah, me too.
I think you're right that a lot of people get stressed out about the end destination. And there's a ton of friction right now. Like, as a coach and in the coaching world, the coaches that, are filling you with so much information about the destination are so hard for me. I tend to work with a lot of people who have worked with coaches that have fried their nervous system.
Yeah.
because they're just coaching from the destination standpoint.
Yeah.
And it sounds really good in the marketing for people to buy their program because they're just talking about this in destination. But what people become frozen in the journey because they're not there yet. And the story that they're creating and their nervous systems are just fried because they're not there, but they want it. And there's so much pressure, right? So really all you have to do is take that pressure off, create safety, learn to understand your nervous system. Everybody's nervous system is different, but understand what yours needs. Like you needed some flow, you needed to cry, right? Like I shared, I needed to shake and then cry. So these are all nervous system things that need something. So understanding yours and giving yourself permission to freaking enjoy life.
Yeah. Even in the midst of feeling like shit.
Amen.
Yeah, that was a big one for me. We talked about it in the last podcast as well. It was like, I have to be able. So they mentioned it in that book that I mentioned earlier. They posed a question that said, what would you do if the stories in your head never went away?
Oof. That's big.
Yeah, right? So just off the top of your head, what do you think you would do?
For me personally, well, I focus so much on mindset work, but instantly the thing that came to mind was go crazy.
Yeah, I thought that as well. When I first read it, I thought, oh, wow, because the whole point of the book is to soften the stories, soften the parts of you that are just asking to be seen. But sometimes maybe you can only soften so much and they never actually go away. They just kind of dim down. And then there's also some parts of ourselves that aren't ready to be seen. Like maybe you see them, but they're not ready to tell the full story. And so you kind of have to let them lie where they're at.
That's so true. I think a lot of people in this healing industry are like, let's rip the Band-Aid off and go all in. And it's like, whoa. Brace yourself here.
I know. That would be so insane, so jarring. Well, and that's kind of honestly how I felt when I got my cancer diagnosis. It was literally the Band-Aid being ripped off. And underneath that Band-Aid was, here's this belief, here's this belief, here's this belief. And oh, it was a lot.
Absolutely. And it is when you start awakening, right, to your truth, it is a lot. It's so many layers to keep covered up. And a lot of people in this lifetime will never do it.
Yeah.
Because they hang on to this conditioning and these stories that they tell themselves.
Yeah.
Instantly, when you asked me that question, I thought, go crazy. But the truth is, right now, like I tell myself so many stories, like I get to enjoy life.
Yeah.
I get to live differently. I get to express myself. It is safe to be me. Right?
Yes.
So I think also like taking control of the stories that we have.
Yeah.
Is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I come from the mindset of flip the story around, so to speak, I guess. It's tell a new story. Like you said, I get to be safe. This is why I love Louise Hay, because she has so many amazing affirmations, which, don't love the word, but you know what I mean. One that I used to say a lot was, I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Absolutely. I love that one as well.
Yeah, me too. Because if anybody is familiar with Louise Hay, she has a book called I Can Heal Your Life. And in that book is a list of all the different symptoms in your body. And I had Hodgkin's specifically. And it was literally that your blood is running out because you're trying to prove yourself.
Oof.
Oh, yeah. And so just dealing with that alone, and then coming out of that, feeling better about it, and then choosing to teach Reiki. And now 4 years almost of teaching Reiki, and that lesson has repeatedly come up just in different ways. Definitely less, thank God. And I did a lot of inner child work because I had massive daddy issues, and daddy's not around, Dad died. So it was like, I have to now do that work without getting closure from him personally.
Wow. It's incredible.
Yeah, so fun.
It's the work. It's the work, but it is, I personally believe that we came here to ascend. Like we came here with these things to work through.
Yep.
Right. So when you flip the story, like you said, you like to do, flip the story, like I get to do this. I get to evolve through this. So even though it's hard right now, I get to do the work so that I get to feel better on the end and I don't have to carry this forever. And it is hard. I mean, a lot of us, even if somebody is there to get the closure with, sometimes trying to force the closure with somebody can be dangerous. There's a lot of
sometimes you don't get it.
No.
Yeah.
And you really have to be willing to meet yourself there, right? Like what came up for me yesterday, and this lack of feeling like supported and safe in ways that I really wanted. I know I can't go to the people in my life and ask that of them because they're not able, and it would actually just add a lot of insult to a relationship.
Yeah.
So I have to get there within myself, and I really believe that we're meant to have this radical self-acceptance and self-love,
Yeah.
right? And that we are our own problem and our own solution ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, so what comes to mind in the matter of not being able to ask those people for what you need, have you ever experienced where if you do the work inside of you, they change without you having to ask them?
I have experienced this.
Yeah, me too.
It's incredible.
How was that for you?
I think it can take people, different situations are popping into my mind, but it can take people by surprise, right? When you stop responding in the way that they've expected, because you've always kind of intermingled, interwoven your lives and your reactions in a certain way. And when all of a sudden you realize you don't need to respond to that, it almost throws a monkey wrench in the whole system and the factory shuts down. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And when you hold steady to that, this new version of you that doesn't need to, ask them for the safety and security, or doesn't need to respond or get defensive or whatever it is, they don't have to be the ones running from that issue or creating the issue either, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know. I had to do it at work because the very beginning of my new job was a lot, very stressful. And I had to specifically make the decision that I wasn't going to be a part of that narrative that was in my head, the narrative that I could literally see playing out every single day. And once I did that, it took about a month, but things shifted and it was absolutely amazing. I was like, I can't be the victim, and I also don't want to hold that person in the story I'm making up of them, because that's not fair to them and it's not fair to me.
So beautiful. So powerful. I was doing that with this holiday weekend. We haven't spent Thanksgiving with my family for a long time. Family dramas that I've been able to avoid.
Oh, gosh.
And this year we were going, and I kept telling myself, I'm not going to make up a story before. I'm going to make up a story during, and I'm not going to make up a story after. It was so much better. Everybody just wanted to be together ultimately. And I did really well with the stories before. I did really well with the stories during. And I found that I slipped up a little bit on the way home. I still wanted to recap what it was, because our brain will look for it. It just wants rest. So it wants to make up stories and file things away. And I just had to catch myself and be like, who cares if somebody is still in a little bit of a process in their own life? Who cares? Ultimately, the story I'm going to give my brain right now is that I love my family, period. How did you get to the place to stop telling the story, or what story did you give your brain to replace? Did you find that that's true? Like your brain needed a story, so you had to give it something?
Yeah, but really more it was, there was a situation happening, and it was happening daily, and it was not fun. I would literally have massive anxiety just trying to drive to work. It was not great. And because I'm at where I'm at in my life and I've done all the work, I can recognize it now. And I was just like, there is no way in hell I can go on like this. I have to figure this out. And it's not the situation, like you said, where I can go, hey, this is a contentious relationship in the workplace and I don't like it. What can we do about it? Like I'm definitely not a confrontational person, but I'm okay with, bringing up with the bosses or whatever if something's happening. And that did happen. We did talk about it, but I just kept getting caught in that. And eventually I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I have to stop. So I don't know if you've ever heard this. I think I've maybe shared this with you, but it's kind of a double layer thing. So I basically sent love to myself for the part of me that was hurting, looked back at the reason why I was feeling like I was being a victim, why I was feeling like I was being bullied, gave love to those parts of me, and then gave love to the person who was causing the issues. Because just as much as I need love, so do they. And then it created harmony. It was amazing. And then the story went away. And it's so funny because now, oh my God, we get along amazingly.
That's so powerful. I love that.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've always really admired about you, Linda, is your ability to absolutely, without question, lead with love 100%. But you can also be that badass. Like you said, like you don't want confrontation, but you have no problem speaking your truth and standing up for you. But you always turn it back to this like place of love. And I love that you shared that. I didn't share that about this one story that I was ruminating on where she's still in this place, and ultimately like what kept coming back to me over the coming days when I'd want to pop back in is send her love. She needs it. Clearly she needs send her love. But it's not our initial reaction.
Oh God, no. And none of us are even taught that. Like, we're not taught that whatsoever. It's the traditional, which is fine, right? The traditional therapy model, work on yourself kind of thing, control what you control, which I do think is important, right? Because there are some things you can't control. But again, going back to the love aspect, what gets me out of feeling helpless in those moments is sending them love to them and to myself. I don't know. I just don't think there's anything more important than that. You know what I mean?
That's the only thing that's real.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And for me, it kind of goes back. So, you know how you mentioned ascending? Well, I swear, so I have a really old Reiki group that I've been going to for probably 20 years at this point, and that was all everybody talked about for years. And I'm talking like 10 plus years ago, this topic was coming up. And I don't know your experience in that realm of spirituality, because there's like little like pockets of ideas.
Oh yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so my thought process with that, so different than everybody else, because everybody was like, I'm on the ascending train and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I ascend at this lifetime because I don't want to come back again. And I just thought, that's not really my outward goal. My outward goal is to just love myself, be the best version of myself that I can be to myself and to other people. And if I ascend, I ascend. Because if you believe in multiple lifetimes, you're going to get there eventually.
Absolutely. And I think if you lead with love, that is ascension. That's like the ascension I truly desire. I think of it also in terms of like, I know for me personally, when I don't learn the lesson the first time, it gets worse.
Oh, yeah.
And I've experienced this many times in life. So I've had to, again, be that observer. Like, what am I supposed to learn here? Right? In good situations and bad situations. Like I'm constantly looking for what I'm supposed to learn on my path of discovering my desires. I'm like, why did I desire that? What's underneath it? Because often our desires, our truest desires, they're few and far between. And it's like yours is obviously leading with love, right? And to be a beacon of love and to experience love. Like that's a true desire. So whether I'm like really enjoying something or whether I'm really like feeling all the feelings and having a hard time, I want to learn what's underneath it as soon as possible.
Me
I
too.
think that's ascension.
Yeah, me too. It's something we have in common, and I'm sure I've shared this with you just through the lessons that teaching Reiki has brought me in the situations that it's brought me. That's the very first thing I ask myself is, what am I supposed to be learning here? Because this feels shitty, and I don't want to stay in it.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are waking up to that as well. Like,
I think so too.
we don't have to live like this. Say what? How?
I know. That's exactly why I teach.
Yeah.
And it's funny because in the beginning, I didn't even know that that was why I was teaching. I literally had no idea. It was so weird. Now I'm like, oh no, I get it.
You're
Like
here.
this, yeah, this is absolutely it. Like my entire mission for teaching is to just bring people back to their ultimate truth, which is love.
So I have a question for you about Reiki and everything. How often do you infuse Reiki like in everything you do? Like you were saying, when you get stressed, it's your go-to, like overwhelmed, a hand on your heart, giving yourself Reiki. Like, do you infuse it in everything you do? Did you do a little Reiki before our meeting?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I live it. Like, and I really live it. And it's not from that place of, I have to do this to be okay. It's just a tool that is like second nature to me at this point. So, yeah, give myself Reiki. I sent you Reiki. I started the Reiki. Um, in our manuals, what's the whole complete treatment? I literally started that right before we got on.
Cool.
Yeah, I do it to my job. I don't send it to people without asking. So my favorite saying that I like to say is, I ask for the highest, most benevolent outcome.
Beautiful.
Oh my God, I cannot tell you, especially for me, how that changes all of my reactions, all of my stress responses, all of my stories, everything. And I will say it as often as I can. And it feeds right back into what we were talking about catastrophizing, about thinking that the end result is going to be bad. If I ask for that, I get it.
So beautiful.
Every time.
And also, like, we think we're so powerful and so knowing. Sometimes it's the best thing we can do. The most powerful thing to do is to ask.
Yeah, be curious, like you said, right?
And ask for like the most benevolent outcome. Because we can't necessarily see it here in our human existence.
Oh my gosh, I know. And the whole benevolent thing is what gets me. That's the part of it that really hits my heart, is because our souls are already there. You know what I mean? And
Truth.
it's the human brain, all of those things that think that there's like a separation, and there's no separation, So that, I think, is really what ascending is.
I love that. Juicy. Yeah, I like you, and I think we've always shared this, and that's one reason I was really drawn to you, is, some people claim to have all the answers and all the knowings, and I think in the spiritual world, a lot of people are kind of gatekeepers about like what they claim to know, right? And I think we share that, like, we know love is real. We're going to go there.
Yeah. Because I don't have the answers. Like, you've been to my trainings. That's the first thing I say, is I do not have all the answers. I am not an expert at anything, but I am willing to grow right alongside you. I am willing to show where I'm at, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the things, I feel like as a teacher in this arena, that's what matters the most.
100%. I love the quote, "We're all just walking one another home." And I try to operate professionally that way. Like, I'm not the healer. I have had a lot of people call me a healer, and including when I was in Bali recently, two Balinese healers told me they thought I was healers. And I had to tell them, like, I understand that you connect with that word. For me, I think we're all our own healers.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can do is help facilitate some things that might expand your consciousness, might
Yeah.
open your heart, right?
You already know what I feel about it. Like, I do not like the word, and I do not claim to be. So I'll share with everybody else. I'm pretty sure I've shared this with you. My Reiki mentor said that if you are going to call yourself a healer, that means that you are taking responsibility not only for their healing, but also for their death.
Yes. Oh, I
And
love that.
I don't want that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
no, absolutely not. So that is the backbone of my Reiki teaching, and the amount of people that I have to literally stop them and go, nope, you are not healing them. You did not do anything to them. They do it themselves in union with God. That's it.
Correct. I love that so much. Yeah, I think you did say that at training, and I totally forgot, but I resonate. It's a truth for me as well.
And the funny thing is, it was a truth for me way before I started teaching. Literally, God, it's got to be over 10 years at this point that I came to that. But and this sounds really kind of weird, but like I forgot that that's what I believed because my life was so in the mode of, okay, I'm going to teach, I'm going to do it this way. And then as life does, it brought it back around, and I was like, oh yes, I do remember that this is where I lie, you know?
Totally. Yeah, I had to sit with those seeds because, like I said, your brain just files stuff away. Our subconscious mind is listening to every single thought, everything that we hear, all of it, right? And I'd had those Balinese healers that I respected saying that, and they'd surface with me later, like come up, and my ego would be like, ooh, right? And it's like, no, we're not watering that seed.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I understand that that's rumbling in there, but that's not my belief. And it like comes back up for us to have to remember who we are and what we stand for and what we believe, you know? And I think that's how we grow those roots into our beliefs even deeper.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so curious. What did they say when you told them that?
One of them I didn't explain it to because he was like in the middle of a thing, but like even me saying it, and one of them I did tell him, like, you know, that's not a word I resonate with, but he told me that he just sees me like helping a lot of people, right, and that I am gifted. And even when I have had people read my astrology chart, I can't remember, maybe it's my Chiron placements stuff, people are like, you could be a healer in this lifetime. And it's like, cool. Well, I really like to help people with their nervous system. I like to help people live the life they desire. But it's not, I just take it as language. I don't think people truly understand what they're saying. And I think some people are a little bit drunk on the idea of being a healer as well.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%. That's why I was saying that I don't want that responsibility, and it's not mine anyways. I mean, we all know that we can't make people change. Well, we can't heal them either. I'm not God, you know? And I'm not trying to be.
Totally. Exactly. And it takes away, right? Like,
yeah,
from who can really heal.
Yeah, which is you, yourself. You have the power, and everything that we are doing should be to empower other people.
Right. Yeah. I'm weary of like coaches again who have all the answers and you just need to blah, 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 or the healers, right? Even though I said I went and saw these Balinese people who are really, really like through lineage practicing really amazing things and truly tapped in.
Oh yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. It's the word that they have, you know,
right,
or the meaning. But really, in their culture, you go and you see a doctor. If somebody has a cancer diagnosis, you see a medical doctor, and you see a Balinese healer. And oftentimes people are seeing their Balinese healer or healers more. But, you know, there's a lot of energy work that goes into their practices from what I've experienced.
Yeah, so I'll share a really great example because I know that this is not out in the public a lot. But years ago, there was a video of probably 3 to 4 men who had their hands over this woman who had cancer in some area of her body, and they were like filming the whole thing. So more so, I think it was like an ultrasound of the tumor, and all they were doing was being love. All they were saying was love. So there's this other book that I found maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and they said, because our truth is that we are whole and complete, we don't take the issues or the problems that we think exist into that sacred space. Because then that means that you're agreeing that those are actual things when they're not.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And so back to the video thing, you could literally watch the tumor shrink. It was insane. And they didn't call themselves healers, right? It was just, we are aligning ourselves with our highest selves, our truth, our souls, and aligning with that person's truth. And then together they heal. Does that make sense?
That's so dope. I want to be there.
Oh my God, I know. Well, that's exactly what I do. It's so funny because there's like a psychic component to Reiki, which I love, and I really want to like hone in on that a little more because I used to practice it a lot and then I've just kind of stopped. But so there's that psychic component of kind of being able to give people, it's not, prescription's not the word, but
like a treatment.
Yeah, like a diagnosis. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
I gave you Reiki and this is what I see for you. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so for me, what I do, and it's funny because it aligns with that book that I was saying, but I didn't realize it until I read the book. I don't look for issues. I don't go in there accepting anything. So when I do a Reiki session, I don't ask you what you think is wrong because it's not true. So when I am giving someone Reiki, I literally see them as light. That's it. And it's funny because it was just a natural thing. I didn't consciously do that. I just did it.
That's so amazing. And I'm glad you mentioned this because when I asked you about how much you take into, when you're using Reiki, it must have been when you were sending it to me because I think I received it. I think all of a sudden this idea like came to me, like, I wonder if she's doing it. I wonder if she's infusing it into our podcast. So, I mean, it knows no boundaries, right? Like the physical,
Right.
it goes through all distances.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so incredible.
I know. I love it.
For me also, when I learned, when I got my placement from you, all of a sudden I started having these incredible visuals, like incredible. And I'd never really been a super visual person in, say, like my clairs, my psychic abilities, my knowing. Like it was never super visual.
Mm-hmm.
But after this training with you, when you brought us out, and I really didn't have pressure or really any expectations for what Reiki was going to do, I just had that, like I said, I've had like a knowing. And when you came in my sphere, it was like, oh, I know I'm supposed to learn from you. And I wasn't ever set on learning Reiki, actually, or becoming a Reiki practitioner. But when you came in, I had that internal like spark and knowing, like, oh, I'm supposed to work with her. And as you know, like the first one didn't work out. And so I just knew like, oh, I'll come back to you. This is going to happen. And it totally initiated some psychic, say, Claire, that wasn't available to me before.
Oh, yeah. No, it's super cool, too, because the second that you say yes to learning Reiki, the energy goes to you immediately. And that's not by me choosing it. It's funny because that is literally the meaning of Reiki, spiritually guided life energy. So it's not my job to direct it.
So beautiful. I experience this with people, even people who are willing to commit to coaching packages with me, or people who sign up for a breath work. Their spirit is already getting ready for the work that we're going to do together.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I've had this thought and I want to ask you so that you can share with everybody and share with me. How do you embody joy now?
Ooh, I love this. Joy is, again, that like golden arrow that's pointing us to like desire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple of things that you said earlier, like just about when you feel really good. And for me, it's connection. Joy to me is connection, whether that's connecting to myself, connecting to earth, connecting to spirit, connecting to others, right? Like yesterday, as I told you, I had a really hard day, like morning. A lot of emotion came up and I was absolutely exhausted, but I had agreed to show somebody my shaking practice. And I got on there and we laughed our butts off, mostly about ascension. She's
Right.
doing a lot of work, and I'd been wanting to share my shaking with her because I knew her nervous system could really use it.
Yeah.
So we got on there, and even though we were both struggling because we're doing the work and it's not easy, we laughed so hard, and it was that like soul connection laugh. But even when I was crying and shaking, like it brings me joy
Mm-hmm.
to be in connection with myself and my heart and my desires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Being in connection with nature, like you know me, I'm in nature, I'm hugging trees,
Same.
that is my happy spot.
Same. We all know it's mine.
What is nature your joy?
1,000%. That's why I teach Reiki in it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine doing it any other way.
It's so beautiful.
I know. I love it. So what advice can you give someone who's at the beginning of their awakening journey?
I would say be very gentle with yourself. Continue to create a sense of safety, because we are safe to like wake up and come home to ourselves and come home to our knowing, and find community, because not everybody in our life will understand what we're going through, but there are a lot of people out there who do. So allow yourself to open up to the people that you're, like I said, like I was really called to you, because I was opening up new possibilities. So I think finding the person that understands you, and you will know who this is by listening to yourself. I think anybody who is just waking up in this beautiful, beautiful life that you have, the most important thing that you can do is create a sense of safety and remind yourself that you have unlimited possibility and potential within you. And it is safe to remember all of who you are.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I want to end with a fun question. So, if you could choose to change the past or know the future, which would you choose and why?
I guess it would definitely be the past, change the past. There are those little like things that you regret, but you know that they made you the person that you are. But yeah, I would love to go back and take away any like suffering, right, that has been caused for anybody. I definitely wouldn't want to know the future.
Me either. I think that would be a lot.
A lot. And also like the joy of the journey, right?
Yeah, right. If you knew, like, and this is weird, but I actually do know somebody who purports to know when he's going to die. I'm like,
I've heard of this too, and I feel the same way. Like, that's a lot of pressure.
Oh, man. Well, this has been an absolute thrill to have you on here. I know that we could talk forever.
Forever.
I know. So before we go, I want to make sure our listeners know how they can work with you, where they can find you, all that jazz.
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I
Of course
do breathworks virtually online and in person, as well as coaching, relationship coaching with other or with yourself for rekindling that relationship to self, getting rid of outdated stuff, and life coaching, helping you get to the destination that you truly desire going. You can find my website at destinationreverie.com or follow me on Instagram, Destination Reverie, Reverie.
Oh, perfect. Well, I love you so much. Thank you again for taking time out of your globe-trotting schedule to chat with me.
Thank you so very much for having me, Linda. Always love talking to you so very, very much.
Same. Bye.
Bye.
I also want to thank my audience for all the love on my first episode. It means a lot to have your support, especially because this is a one-woman show, guys. I would also love it if you could keep it going by sharing this podcast with your friends, subscribing, and downloading. I feel like together we can get this show out to the masses. And as always, I send my love out to you, and I hope that you have an awesome day.